I am back after a short absence. I was looking on my videos page and realised that I hadn't actually recorded anything since the beginning of the month, which doesn't normally happen to me, but everything's been really busy, so I thought that I would do a quick catch up and then a wrap up on what I have been reading to fill you guys in. I'm using a different camera right now because I am testing out, so what better way to welcome myself back to YouTube, make a comeback, than by becoming increasingly frustrated by technology. So I think the image in this looks a little bit weird to me, but that might be because it got drenched when I was climbing Mount Snowdon and I got stuck in a storm. So the camera has been soaked, but I wanted to see if the microphone and stuff still works, and I'm still recording on an external mic as well. So lots of testing going on right now. I'm trying to decide whether or not I look like a ghost, but here we are, I am back. I'll start off with talking about like life stuff, the reason for my absence, and then we'll talk about the books that I've been reading recently. I have quite a few because I've been doing quite a lot of reading. It's just, I think something had to give, and that something was YouTube. Where should I start? My life problems are entirely work related. There's not really much going on in my personal life at the moment. Personal plans and stuff have pretty much stayed the same. I have been working out a couple of times a week, can definitely feel myself getting stronger. I'm really enjoying the warmer weather, but work has been an absolute shit show to say the least. To give you guys some idea of what's been going on without going into too much detail, because I think I'm allowed to, but I don't really want to. I work for a massive translation company in the UK, and various divisions within the company have been going through like mergers and restructures and stuff. Last year we had some redundancies, and as the department manager I had to be a part of those, which was draining. Finally got ourselves sorted, and then we were told that we are moving into a different division, and we got the date for that. Talk had been going on for that for quite a while, so I was prepared for it, but I wasn't prepared for how involved I would have to be. I was also involved in trying out some new systems that the new division that we're going into used. We had to figure out how it worked with our workload. I was also told at some point that my department was splitting in half, and one part of it was going to the technical side of the division that we're moving into, and the other half was, or part, it's not even half, is going into the language side of the division that we're going into. So I would still be managing the language side, and someone else would have to lead the technical side. So it took a while to sort all of that out. While all of that was going on, I had to deal with also some performance improvement plans and reviews. I'm not going to talk about those into too much detail, but it is so draining. That started around December-ish officially, though we'd been trying to get it started since probably July to September last year, but it didn't really kick off until December, January. There were also some disciplinaries going on that I had to be involved in, and this performance plan, which kind of just dragged on for ages. It took weeks and weeks to get it resolved. Eventually it was, and it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, by which point we were ready to do the actual move into the new division, with me leading the language side and someone else leading the tech side. So that split happened. I had to then train up a new team leader to work under me, which took a couple of months, and they are pretty much up to speed now, I think. They are a very good colleague to have on the team. I'm really pleased with them, but as part of that I did notice some knowledge gaps in my little language team, because previously there had been a couple of people in between them and me as I was managing the entire department, but I was able to work more closely with them as part of this move and make sure everyone was ready to go. But unfortunately I did notice some knowledge gaps, so I spent a lot of time trying to smooth out the team, help their workload a bit, and kind of just help them, because I'd done all of their jobs before, so I knew kind of how they worked, and I was able to offer my tips and knowledge and stuff, things that just hadn't been passed down over like the generations over the years. So that was a really nice feeling, seeing everyone learn and improve and realise that they didn't have to be so stressed because I was giving them tools to be able to do their jobs. So that was really nice. So the training has almost come to an end, I would say. The person I've trained, the team lead, is quite self-sufficient now, which is really good. There's still some knowledge gaps there and stuff. It's just things, you know, it comes with experience. They have only been doing it for a couple of months. But also, in addition to that, it has just been announced, I knew about this for a while, but it's just been announced that there is going to be a restructure within this language team that I'm now part of among the other line managers. So groups of translators and linguists are going to be reporting to new line managers. Previously I think about 60 people were reporting to just one, and 40 or so were reporting to another, which is just, that's mad. So we have divided the teams up, or my manager has divided the teams up into 7 line managers. In my team I'm going to be keeping the original little team that I had before, and I'm going to be gaining another team as well, and they are going to be a bunch of new translators who are just starting their translation career at the company, helping them develop train, decide which direction to go in. Maybe they don't want to be translators forever, they might want to become line managers. That was announced, and I have done a bit more training and more introductions into new processes and technology and stuff, and there's just a lot of like pilots and testing and all of that I am also involved in. It's just all going on, so that is why I took a month off of YouTube without really planning to. And now that the announcement has been made, I feel a little bit lighter, especially because my team lead in my little team is a lot more self-sufficient now, so that means I have a little bit of space to breathe. Thankfully I was able to read a lot still, and I will show you what I have been reading. So these are the books that I've been reading in April and May. It's not quite the end of May yet as I'm recording this, but I just wanted to get the video out, and I don't really want to record 2 wrap-ups in one go, so here we are. If I finish any more books, which I'm hoping to in May, I'll include them in my next video. So let's start off with The Girl Who Could Move Shut With Her Mind. This is by someone called Jackson Ford, which is a pen name for someone who I can't remember. He's written quite a few books, I think. But this follows a young girl or young woman called Tegan Frost who can move stuff with her mind. She is telekinetic and she is highly sought after. The government are currently employing her very poorly to work with a team who do missions, basically. It's kind of like a Mission Impossible sort of vibe. It says Alias meets X-Men. I've not seen Alias, but I'm sure that's accurate. So Tegan is going around doing all of these missions with her little team, but she's treated quite poorly for being such a young member of the team and also being like a weirdo with powers, which isn't very nice, obviously. And at the end of one mission, a body is found deceased, and Tegan is accused of doing that because she's known for her like fiery temper. So she kind of goes on the run and tries to figure out who is framing her. There's also a second point of view as well, following another telekinetic person who no one seems to know about. I think he's kept his powers a secret. I can't remember his name. Jake, I think. Their storyline sort of starts to interconnect a little bit. I didn't really like his storyline or chapters. I feel it would have been better without him there at all. So I didn't love this book. It was quite slow paced for like a fast paced thrillery sort of book, and some of it was quite amusing, but I just didn't really care enough about the characters to really be bothered by the end. I think if you enjoy action thrillery sorts of books with people with powers, then you would enjoy this. That turns out to be not really my thing if I don't love the author's writing. So I do tend to really enjoy books about people with powers, but I think this was just not really my kind of thing. This is the first in a series of I think 4 books, so there are quite a few if you do enjoy this one to, you know, get into. So I gave that one 3 stars. And then I read books 1, 2 and 3 of the Unwind dystology, I think they're calling it. So there's Unwind, Unholy and Unsold. So I've talked about this at length before. Unwind is a dystopian series by Neil Shusterman, who is the author of Scythe and The Toll and all of that. This one is set in a world in which abortion has been outlawed as a sort of compromise, I suppose. Scientists have figured out a way to reuse pretty much every single part of the human body, and the government has like jumped on that and it's like, yes, we can use this. We can allow parents who carry their babies to term and raise them to then decide to have them unwound between the ages of 11 and I think it's 18, which means that if the child is behaving badly or they're not like the golden child or something, the parent can just decide, yeah, let's give him up and we can just donate his entire body to a bunch of other people. He'll be out of our hands and he'll be gone, but they can tell themselves that he is still alive in other people. It's a really interesting concept, I think. This book follows 3 people. One is someone who's going to be unwound because his parents are giving him up because he's misbehaving. The other is an orphan and she is just chosen to be unwound because in the orphanage only so many people, if they're super talented, can kind of leave. It's really quite creepy, but people who aren't like the best of the best, they're unwound so that they can like give back to society or something. And then there's Levi, who has chosen this because his family have raised him to be a TIFE, so he's quite keen, I suppose, to donate himself. And then they all intercept, kind of go on the run together for a little bit, so it's really good. I really enjoyed this first one. I gave this one 4 stars. I also really enjoyed the second book, which follows on from it, and then the third book is, these were both rereads by the way, and so was this one, but this is where I stopped last time and I couldn't remember why. I could not remember anything about this book, and to be honest I still can't remember anything about it. This is such a poor installment in the series. It's really, really boring. Nothing really goes on, and I'm honestly not surprised that I just didn't bother carrying on with the series after this. I'm going to now because I do want to finish it after putting all this time into it, but it's interesting that I felt exactly the same about this 10 years ago as I do now. Like, it's not memorable. I think Neil Shusterman should have just stopped at 2 books. I don't know how the series is going to end because I will be reading that one just for the first time, but I hope that it's good because I have put all of this effort into it now. I read a thriller called Hostage by Claire McIntosh. This is set mainly in the UK. The main character is a flight attendant in her personal life she is having problems with her marriage. She has a little girl as well who is adopted with her husband. So she goes to work on a day that she wasn't necessarily supposed to, because she wanted to get away from the house basically. She didn't want to be around her husband much longer. So she gets on the plane, and then the plane is taken hostage by a bunch of environmentalists. And I don't really know how the author feels about environmentalism, and I realise that these people are terrorists but it's interesting that the author chose to make the terrorists environmentalists as well. I don't know, it's just a really interesting decision, I think. At least, you know, it didn't go down the racist route, but it was just very confusing, but I suppose topical as well, because there are climate change activists and environmentalists who are disrupting a bunch of stuff, and there's an argument about whether or not they should be doing that, if that's just all part of protesting. I'm not going to get into that now because this video is going to be way too long anyway, but yeah, I found that very, very interesting. Otherwise though, that's the only thing I really remember about this thriller. I'm going to forget it. I'm going to give this one like 3 stars because it was just kind of standard. Even though I really like thrillers set on planes, it turns out, or about planes and the aviation industry. I think I was meant to be a pilot in this life, and then just life got away from me and it just never happened. I have also really enjoyed TJ Newman's books which are like aeroplane thrillers, and I've also recently been watching a channel called Mentor Pilot. I love his videos. He talks about plane incidents and crashes and accidents and stuff, and talks about what went wrong and what the aviation industry has learnt from that. I've been binging his videos, and basically I think I'm a pilot now. I'm probably fly a Boeing 777, or at least that's what it feels like. So yeah, I liked this one, but mainly because of the aeroplane stuff. I also read or reread Good Girl Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This is the second book in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. The first one follows a girl called Pip who is investigating a cold case within her town. It's told in mixed media format. This one follows on, and we find out a bit more about various characters in the village. I love this one. I cry at the end. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. I'm going to do a recap on this like I did for the first book, but I just need to bring myself to have another skim through at some point so that I can make notes and stuff, because I didn't do that the first time. I was just too involved in the story. Then I read The Wolf of Oren Yarrow, which is a fantasy book. This is the first in a trilogy, which is the Chronicles of the Bitch Queen, but I didn't love this one. I am really disappointed. I thought I was going to really enjoy it, and I did really enjoy the first 100 pages. This follows Queen Talion, who has kind of inherited a throne after her father conquered various kingdoms and stuff, and she was meant to rule with another very important figure, but they get married and then she takes the kingdom. She's just about to be crowned, and then he just wanders off and disappears, leaving her pregnant and all by herself with her obviously people. So she's struggling because of that now that her boy is like 5 or something, but also because his people have stayed with hers and his people don't really trust her, even though she has a son and an heir to the throne. She's not really won them over, and her husband would have really helped with that, but unfortunately he has gone. So he sends her a letter and she goes to meet up with him. She has to travel across the sea and stuff, and then there's an assassination attempt, and after that everything just goes a bit awry. Like there's a meandering plot. She meets a bunch of people and it just didn't really fall together very well, in my opinion. I wasn't a massive fan, so I'm giving this one 3 stars. I'm not going to carry on with the series, unfortunately. I thought that she had a lot of potential. I thought she was really interesting. She's an older character in fantasy and a mother as well. Just don't really care. I also read the 6th volume of Something is Killing the Children. I've decided I'm going to buy my own copies of this so I don't have to keep getting them from the library. This is a paranormal horror series, graphic novel series obviously, about monster hunters. Children kind of manifest monsters. The main character, whose name is like Erica, I think. Erica Slaughter. She was taken in as a child and raised to be a monster hunter, but she is now split from the clan, I suppose, because she doesn't really agree with their methods. In the first book, she's investigating and trying to save a bunch of children from this one monster who's kind of going on like a town rampage. The series slowly starts to expand. You get her backstory, you learn why she doesn't agree with her clan and their methods and stuff, and why she is avoiding them. So I really enjoyed this one. I love this series so much, and I gave this one 4 stars. I reread the first Murderbot book with my husband because I thought he would really enjoy it, and I was correct. He did love this. He gave it 5 stars. This is the first in the Murderbot series. It's called All Systems Red, and it follows a character, a robot called Murderbot, who just wants to enjoy its life or newfound freedom, but it is having to look after a group of scientists while they're on a planet and solve a mystery. I really enjoy this series. I've only read the first 3, I think. I'm going to carry on with it very soon once I get my husband to finish listening to the second book or novella, because we started it and then we just haven't been on a road trip together since, so we haven't gotten very far. I read The Measure. This one is a interesting book. It's literary fiction. It follows 8 people. Everyone receives a bit of string. This string measures how long people have left to live, basically. So everyone finds out how long they have to live. Some people decide not to look, others are forced to look against their will. It follows 8 people as they are dealing with knowing that they might have a short life, or people around them might have a short life. And I found this very interesting. There's kind of a discussion about whether the string was the cause of people's short life. For example, if people end up taking their own life due to knowing that their life is short, or if it was always going to be that way and the string is just there to, you know, show people. It says here that it's a really good one for book clubs, and I completely agree with that. Actually, I think this is a really enjoyable one. I gave this one 3.5, 4 stars. I'll probably keep it and maybe reread it at some point. It was quite slow going in some parts. It's not like an actiony dystopia sort of thing. It's very much literary fiction following ordinary people as they learn to deal with this knowledge that arguably no one should have to deal with. But then people in real life do have that knowledge as well. Sometimes people with a terminal illness are told that they've only got 3 months to live, like absolute max, whereas these strings go out to absolutely everyone. Yeah, really interesting, really thought-provoking, and I really enjoyed it. I also read books 1 and 2 of Sweet Tooth. You can't really see because of the glare, I'm sorry. These are a graphic novel series. This is a dystopian post-apocalyptic book in which there's a virus going around, so don't read these if you're not into that kind of thing, or if you're going to be triggered by the virus. And the virus has killed a bunch of people, but children who are born around this time are born kind of mutated. They have like animal antlers, and they basically look like they're part animal. So the main character is called Sweet Tooth. He has got another name, but I can't remember what it is. He is living with his dad in a cabin in the woods. One day his dad catches the virus and dies, and then a little while later Sweet Tooth is almost caught by hunters who are going around trying to find these mutated children. He is saved and taken in by a guy whose name I also can't remember. They go on a bit of a road trip together. A lot more happens, and I think there's a 3rd book in this series, and that's where it ends. So I'm really looking forward to getting the 3rd book, which is meant to be coming in from the library, but I think someone's been holding on to it for like 3 months at this point, so I don't know if it's actually going to come in. I'm trying to decide whether I want to buy this series for myself, because it is very enjoyable. I just don't know if I'm going to reread it, so I really do need to get it from the library if possible, I think. But I really enjoyed these. I gave them 4 stars. They're very, very good, very emotional, and I'm very attached to all of the characters now. Then I read Bride, and I loved it. I gave this 4.5 stars. I did start it a little while back and kind of put it down for ages, and I wasn't sure it was going to be my thing, but then I binged it and read it in basically one sitting, so it was so good. So this follows a vampire who is called Misery, which is my only problem with this book. Why is her name Misery? It's freaking stupid. She is the daughter of a very important vampire, and as the daughter of someone so powerful and important, she has been sent to live with humans as part of like a peacekeeping alliance. So the humans look after her. If anything happens to her, then the humans and the vampires go to war. So she's back from that, and then she is told that she is going to have to marry the head werewolf of the werewolf clan, or pack rather, to basically be another part of another peace treaty. So she moves in with someone called Lo, who is the alpha werewolf, and it's a romance between the 2 of them. But what a lot of people haven't mentioned, there's actually a mystery, because her best friend has gone missing. She is trying to figure out where she is, and that's the reason that she agrees to marry this guy, because she thinks that he knows something. I just love the combination of the mystery, the thriller aspect, and the paranormal stuff. This reminded me a bit of the fan fiction that I used to read back in the day as well. Very, very much enjoyed it. I'm really glad that I read this one. I'm definitely gonna be keeping it. I really, really liked it. I read Bad Things Happen Here, which I gave 3 stars, or no, 2 stars, I think. It was kind of boring. This is a YA thriller set on Ireland. There's basically a curse there, apparently, where a lot of people die, and the main character's sister is one of those people. I thought this was gonna be a bit more emotional than it actually was, because the main character has lost her best friend and also now her sister, but it was just kind of like flat the entire way through, so I just didn't really care. So don't really have much to say about that one. Didn't enjoy it. I then read When I Was 10, which is another thriller. This one is set in the UK. It follows a couple of people who were childhood best friends. There's 2 sisters and 1 neighbour who are all friends, and you find out that there was a murder back in the day. One of the sisters killed their parents on the same day that the neighbour's mother died, and then the neighbour ran out into the street and got struck by lightning. So there's a whole bunch of history there to really untangle. They're no longer in touch, any of them. Eventually they are forced to confront what happened that night, and you start to find out bits and pieces before everything sort of explodes. It was very intriguing, but I'm going to forget about this one in a few months time. Like, it doesn't really stand out to me, and it's not an all-time favourite thriller, so I'm going to give this one 3 stars. It was just kind of standard. This one really disappointed me. This is Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow. I really enjoyed the first 100 pages, but after that I was just kind of feeling meh about it. This is a middle grade fantasy book. Morrigan is a cursed child and she is meant to die on some sort of eve. I can't remember what it's called. It's basically her 11th birthday. But then she is taken by this ginger guy to join the Wondrous Society and go into another realm. Up until that point I was really interested, but eventually by the time she got to the realm and was doing the trials I just didn't really care, and I'm really sad about that because I thought I was going to really enjoy this, but it was just all right. I'm going to write a recap for this one on my site and then donate it again because it's not going to stick with me and I'm not going to read the rest of the series. So those are all the books that I have completed. No, I've got one more. I read The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson and I loved it. I gave this one 4 stars. I liked it a lot more than 5 Survive. Obviously not as much as Good Girl's Guide to Murder because that's one of my all-time favourite series. But Rachel Price was very good. I went into it not knowing what was going to happen. I'd recommend that you do the same. So I'm not going to describe what happens in this one because it's a thriller. But I really enjoyed all of the characters. There was a little bit of romance in there but it didn't go too overboard. I didn't mind it. I'm a bit iffy about romance in YA nowadays, but it wasn't too bad. So that was good. And then Belle Price, who is the main character, she is dealing with a lot of family stuff and trauma and things, and then her mother basically reappears at some point. And I really enjoyed the interactions between the two. I enjoyed the interactions between Belle and her cousin as well. That was absolutely wonderful. So would highly recommend reading this one, even if you didn't like 5 Survive. It felt a little bit more like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I just think Holly Jackson writes better when her books are set in the UK and also when she's writing about tight-knit communities. I think that is where she does her best work. 5 Survive was absolutely nothing like that, and it kind of, the ending came out of left field. Rachel Price was a little bit closer to what I have come to expect or want from her. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I gave it 4 stars. And then the only other book that I have to talk about is one that I'm currently reading. I'm about 50 pages in so far, and that is Star Splitter. So this is a space thriller sort of thing, I think. It's set in 2199 and now humans are discovering the universe. Humans can space travel by basically unraveling the body and sending that information across time and space for the body to then be like 3D printed essentially and put back together. So the main character, who has been, I think, living on Earth while her parents, who are scientists, are investigating or researching other planets, she is then invited to go and live with her parents again, which she's feeling a bit funny about because they've kind of abandoned her for their research and she feels quite offended by it. And to be fair, like as a teenager I would feel the same. So she's not really sure she wants to go, and she also doesn't really want to go and live on a spaceship next to a random planet with parents that at this point she barely knows. So she goes through this procedure in that her body is unraveled and sent over, and then she wakes up after being 3D printed to find bloody handprints on the wall, and everything on this spaceship, the new one, is in disarray and no one's around. The synopsis does mention a familiar stranger, so I'm not going to go into any more detail other than that, other than the first 50 pages are kind of learning about the concept of this kind of space travel, learning what's going on, and also introducing you to the character who has essentially been abandoned, or feels like she's been abandoned by her parents, and then feels like she is about to go and be greeted by them again, only to find that they are not there and she is by herself. Really interested in this one so far. I really enjoy space stuff at the moment. I've discovered a obsession with space horror recently. Not that that's what this is, I don't think this is space horror, but I'm really into sci-fi and particularly space horror, so I think I'm going to be leaning more towards that for the rest of the year. It's just where I see my reading sort of going, although I do really need to clear some space on my fantasy shelves. I've been doing quite well so far, as you can see, but I definitely need to create more gaps because I am running out of shelf space, which is ridiculous. So yeah, those are all the books that I have read recently. That's what you've been missing. Hopefully this video turned out okay because I don't really want to record it again. I might switch back to my other camera if this one turns out a bit dodgy, so look forward to that in my next video. What have I got coming up? I've got some new releases videos that I need to record, so I need to do my June new releases, which will come out soon, and then July, which will come out later in the month. I've got a book haul that I recorded recently, but I look absolutely knackered in it, so I'm going to re-record that, I think, if I've got the energy. And I also obviously got my June TBR, which I may or may not stick to because I've been mood reading and it's really been working for me. So yeah, I really like doing TBR videos though, to give myself some sort of idea and guidance, so we'll see. Other than that, let me know what you've been up to recently. I think I'm all talked out now and I need to go and start editing this video to see how it turns out, so I know whether I need to switch cameras. So thanks for watching and I'll speak to you all in the next one. Bye.